This weekend is another chapter in the LSU-Alabama game. I've been to every one except one since 2008. I still haven't decided, but it's always a little different because it's Nick Saban coming back to LSU, a place he won a national championship, now coaching Alabama, a place he has absolutely dominated. Let's take a look at Saban because I hate to do this because a lot of times we'll be like, is so-and-so underrated? I think underrated is the wrong word for Saban because what he's done, I don't believe is ever going to be repeated again in college football. Let's take a look. In 2007, he comes in. They don't win a ton of games. They do okay. Remember, they lost to Louisiana Monroe, and people were actually asking about Nick Saban. Are we sure this is the right guy? Well, since 2008, we are very sure. In 13 seasons, including this one, ultimately he's going to end up having 13 straight years with 10 or more wins. He's finished in the top 10 every single season. He's finished in the top 5 8 of those seasons. He has been ranked number 1 at some point in the AP poll of all of those 13 seasons since 2007. But I think the mark of a great coach, especially a guy that's been around this long, is how many bad losses do you have? And I'm not talking about disappointing losses. I'm not talking about losses where you're favored, although that doesn't happen to him very often. I'm talking about straight up, what the hell happened there? Let's actually look at all of his losses. I'm also going to keep track of how many potentially lost titles there could be throughout this entire run, which is, again, very subjective, very opinionated, but you know what? It's my video, and it's my opinion. So here we go. All right, 2008. Maybe ahead of schedule, they're already playing Florida for an SEC title and to play in a national championship game. They lose to Tebow, and then they ended up losing to Utah there. Would they have beaten Ohio State? I would say yes, so maybe one potentially lost title there. They win the rematch and win the title against Texas in 2009. 2010, they lost 3 games, which doesn't happen to Saban down there in Tuscaloosa. They lost to number 19 South Carolina, but it was a game day atmosphere. Lattimore, Garcia, they were fired up that day. And then they also lost to LSU by a field goal, 24-21. LSU was 12th in the country, and they lost the Iron Bowl after being up 24-0 on Cam Newton and the Auburn Tigers. They lose that game, and then Auburn goes on to win a national championship against Oregon. However, things get a lot better after that. 2011, they lose to LSU 9-6 in overtime at home. Tense game, cold, crazy, pros everywhere. I was lucky to be on that sideline that night. Bama also missed 4 field goals, where if they'd had better field goal kickers throughout the Saban years, there's maybe another couple titles in this whole deal. Bama did go on to win the rematch in New Orleans for a BCS title against LSU, so another title for Saban. 2012, they had one loss against number 15 A&M, 29-24 at home. Remember Manziel, they got off to a bad start, a lot of turnovers. Well, they went on to win the BCS title. 2013, this is the most disappointing loss probably of the entire Saban run. Bama's 11-0. They're taking on number 4 Auburn, which really built late that season. It's 28-28. Bama's already missed 2 field goals, and they missed a third one, and it's returned for a touchdown. The kick 6. Auburn, the number 4 team in the country, goes on to play in a national championship, loses to Florida State. You know, look, is Bama beat Florida State? Maybe not that year, but at least it's worth keeping track of it. 2013, they also lost the Sugar to Oklahoma, 45-31. I'm telling you, I've watched this game twice. It's one of the weirdest Bama games I've ever seen because Alabama, don't talk about, being disappointed and not playing for a national championship. They got worked that day by Trevor Knight and that Sooners offense. They couldn't get off the field. I thought guys were trying, and they just got beat. Hey, it happens, even to the best, every few years. 2014, they lost to number 11 Ole Miss. They missed 2 field goals that game on the road. It was also the first year of the playoff. And they lost to number 4 seed Ohio State, and Blake Sims started handing out picks like Halloween candy, and that's potentially another title they lost because Bama probably, if they win that game and they were up, beats Oregon. 2015, they lost to number 15 Ole Miss at home, 43-37, the rare -5 in the turnover margin game, and they still, believe it or not, still had a chance to win this one late. They did go on to win the playoff. 2016, 14-0. They lost the title game to Clemson on a last-second touchdown, potentially lost title number 4. 2017, they lost to number 6 Auburn. They just lost to them that day. Nothing fluky, not about field goals this time. They lost 26-14 to an Auburn team that was just better. But Bama got into the playoff, won the playoff, and that was the birth of Tua and another national championship for Saban. 2018, 14-0. Outright smashed by Clemson, 44-16. It's not turnovers. It's not field goals. And actually, people started wondering, has the Bama thing run its course? The crazy thing about 2019, and very few of you are going to remember this or even believe me, But if Tua doesn't get hurt, and it's Tua, and they win the Iron Bowl against Auburn, and their only losses is at home against number 1 LSU, they were going to be the 4th team in the playoff because they were only behind Georgia and ahead of Oklahoma before the Auburn loss. If you look at the late rankings, and Georgia lost the SEC title game to LSU, Bama would have been the 4th team. So that would have meant Saban was alive in all 6 versions of the college football playoff, but that did not happen. LSU went on to win the title. And now we're looking at a team in 2020 that is number 1 again. Now, the reason I give you that whole list and go through it is I'm still trying to find that bad loss that I don't really even believe is there. It's excusable to lose to really good football teams throughout the season. It's okay. And to further prove how dominant they've been, remember we talked about that SEC title game in 2008 against Florida, Urban, and Tebow, right? It was the Gators in 2009 again. Bama was a 4.5-point underdog in that rematch, and they won that game. They've only been a dog one other game, and that was against Georgia as a 1.5-point dog in 2015. They won that one 38-10. It wasn't even close. Bama is so used to winning, so used to having Saban have you in the mix for a national championship. And think about that thought. You are, as a member of the Alabama football team, playing for a national championship every single season. It's not just a t-shirt in the spring. It's a reality when you kick the football off in the fall. I remember being there for game day all the time, and when TV was there, they would treat it like a food truck. They were so used to it being on campus. The point of this whole thing is to remind you how insane this run by Saban has been, because that's really the point. Hate him or love him, you have to respect him. This would be like having a friend who learns how to fly and then a month later being like, oh yeah, it's Todd, he can fly, whatever, we've seen it before. No, your friend Todd can fly. That's a big deal. And that's what Saban has done. This is a big deal. And as much as I know, as I'm telling you to appreciate it right now, because I don't think it's ever going to happen again, I know that almost everybody watching this video is rooting for it to be over.